Welcome to Mostly Rational, a podcast in which we answer your questions in a way that is rational, mostly. Welcome to our special Star Wars-themed episode for May the 4th. I'm Asia Sanchez.
I'm Tawny Sanchez.
And today we have two guests, Brandon Wong and Geordi LaFoon.
So today is a special episode, as it is May the 4th. All of us are fans of Star Wars, but our two guests are some of the warsiest friends we have.
Oh, man.
I did not write that on record.
So would you guys like to give us a little background on why you're such Star Wars fans?
Sure. I'm Brandon Wong. I've been watching Star Wars for as long as I can remember. It has been an integral part of my family, and my childhood, and into my adulthood. So, that's my background a little bit.
Cool.
My name's Geordi LaFoon, and I actually got into Star Wars because of Lego Star Wars. So I was about 10, and I had never seen any of the movies, and I got a GameCube, and then I played Lego Star Wars at a friend's house, and I was hooked, and then I played through all the movies in Lego form. So basically every major plot point was just revealed to me in a no dialogue, short little joke cutscene. So like Darth Vader being Luke's father was...
Oh my.
Basically ruined for me by just a little Lego Darth Vader holding up a picture of Padme pregnant and being like, like pointing to Luke back and forth until Luke figures it out. So anyway, and then after that, I played Battlefront. Then I started reading the books. Then I watched the movies. So I basically did it all backwards.
Well, it still worked, apparently.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, Lego Star Wars is one of the most fun games I ever played as a teen. So
I don't think I've ever played it.
It's fun. So I can see it being, a gateway drug into the Star Wars
It definitely was for me.
universe. So why don't you guys tell us a little bit about yourselves, not Star Wars related?
I'm 23.
You just forgot.
I'm almost 24. I'm 23.
Also, this is Brandon.
Yes, this is Brandon. I work in pest control. Direct hit pest control. I'll kill your rats. So, 5 stars on Google.
Not your pet rats. Make sure they're distinguished from the other rats.
Yeah,
Some people enjoy them, and their salami tails.
But outside of that, yeah, I just love Star Wars. That's about it.
That's all there is to know.
That's my life.
How about you, Geordi?
I'm 21. I do floor maintenance, and you can't see my air quotes, but basically it's just a fancy way of saying I do janitorial. And yeah, outside of Star Wars, I mean, I don't know, I'm a pretty average guy. I play video games, I watch TV.
Cool. We also probably should mention that Brandon is an INTJ and Geordi is an ENTP, so
Yep.
we have for all the MBTI fans of the pod, a lot of rational brains in this room right now,
A lot
which
of
is pretty cool.
NTs.
Yes.
All NTs.
I just hope it comes across that way in the discussions upcoming.
It won't. That's why we're mostly.
That's true.
So should we
Get right into it?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
So the next 3 questions are going to be coming from our Uncle Paul in New York. First question, would you like to ask it, Geordi?
Sure. Okay, so first question from Paul. Why was Yoda able to live on Dagobah for so long undetected by the Empire? That's a good question. I don't really think that they thought about it too much when they were actually writing the movie. I think it was kind of something that they did a backfill on. Afterwards, they were kind of why is Yoda still here and nobody has found him? And the basic explanation for it is that that dark side cave that Luke visits and has that vision in it has a really strong evil presence or whatever that you can feel. And the reason why Yoda is so close to it, which is kind of weird when you think about it, why would a Jedi Master out of all the places on Dagobah to live, why would he live right next door to this evil cave of darkness? Doesn't really seem like he would. Anyway, the main reason is that it would basically mask his Force presence, I guess, if you could put it that way. Because we know that most of the characters in Star Wars can sort of sense people's power, even across the galaxy. Mm-hmm. There's a couple instances of that. So it would make sense for the Emperor or Darth Vader to still be able to kind of feel that Yoda's out there somewhere. And him being on this planet that the Emperor and Vader might even actually know about. Sort of, kind of, I don't know, that's how I view it. He just was hiding in the...
Yeah, that was about it. I mean, it's a totally desolate planet, no civilization, so there's not much to track, especially with how he's hiding.
Yeah.
I think anytime, you're a writer, especially one who creates, a full universe, like the Star Wars universe, first of all, it's very hard to avoid plot holes, but it must be a great feeling when you have an out like that.
You can explain them away and they make like perfect sense. You're like, oh, it's so clever.
Yeah.
I don't know if they thought about it.
So they probably lucked out on that one. All right, Brandon, would you like to ask the next question?
Sure. It is, what effect did living on Dagobah have on Yoda? And I don't really know a specific answer on that. I mean, he was a little old man that living on a planet alone as a hermit at this point, so I think he just kind of aged. Yeah.
Just got a little kookier
So
as time went on.
pretty normal effect.
Yes, I think.
Yeah. I think, pretty much what you would expect from, like, not seeing or talking to anybody for, like, 20 years.
He's pretty quirky.
He is weird. He's very weird. Although a lot of that's an act that he's putting on
That's true.
to, like, mess with Luke and see how Luke treats him when Luke thinks he's not, like, the great Jedi Master. He just thinks he's some little weird Kermit.
Yeah, that's why I was kind of got out of that.
Yeah.
Some of it was an act. Some of it is just the 70s. Jim Henson. But also, he's kind of like a typical wizened hermit character. You know, they're all supposed to be kind of kooky.
Yeah, and if you look at, Obi-Wan Kenobi's, the effects of him living on his own on Tatooine,
He aged a lot.
He did age a lot.
Because Ewan McGregor looked pretty good in Episode 3. He turned into Alec Guinness.
That is true, so...
And he was Mr.
So
Normal
really,
before.
the effect is aging.
Yes, that is the effect.
Who'd have thunk? The ravages of time.
Yeah.
All right, Tawny?
Our third question from Uncle Paul is, why didn't Count Dooku have Sith eyes?
So by Sith eyes, he's meaning like the yellow, glowing yellow eyes that like Palpatine has and Anakin has after he turns to the dark side. And I think Maul actually had... Did he have yellow or red eyes?
His were more yellow.
Okay, I couldn't remember if they're like yellow or like blood red or something. Anyway, I think the answer for this, we basically just looked at Palpatine to know why. Palpatine, the Emperor, Chancellor, whatever. Because Chancellor Palpatine is Darth Sidious. Spoiler alert. And he never looks like a Sith at all for the entire first 3 episodes or the prequel episodes. He has blue eyes?
I think it was blue eyes, yeah.
Yeah, he has blue eyes, he has normal colored skin, he doesn't have the crazy weird wrinkles or anything like that yet. But then once he's like revealed to be evil in episode 3, and after he has like this duel with Mace Windu and the other Jedi, he starts having yellow eyes after that. So I'm kind of get the impression that like he was controlling it somehow and like hiding it, because obviously it would be a pretty big giveaway to the Jedi.
He probably just ordered some cosplay contacts online.
Maybe that's what it is. And when he got like zapped by the lightning, it just like melted them away.
Yeah, like Wish.com. Blue eyes.
So, what that means for Count Dooku then is that he was probably doing the same thing, I guess, was hiding his yellow eyes, and it kind of makes sense why he would do that, because he wasn't really known as a Sith to anybody. He was just known as Count Dooku, which is not like a Sith title. Like, I think his Sith title was Darth Tyrannus. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, he was hiding his Sith presence or persona or whatever, and he had a lot of dealings with, like, the separatist politicians and stuff, so I would assume that he wouldn't really... I think he'd probably put them off if he showed up with glowing yellow eyes and, like, pale gray skin. It was
Like, hey guys,
hey,
this is
I'm totally
normal.
not evil.
This is fine.
I was
It's all
Absolutely
good.
want what's best
I
for
was
you.
starting to make a really stupid joke about his name, but then I just decided not to.
And yet you
Like
brought it up, so...
Well, it's just going to be something about Count Dooku being his good guy name, and then you would know that he was going to be a bad guy when it changed suddenly to Count Dookie.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
But
I
it was
knew
going
what
to
your
be
joke was going to
delivered
be. You
way
didn't.
better, and just pretend.
I'm not sure there's a good way to deliver that one.
Alright, Asia, would you like to read the next one since it's mostly addressed to you?
Just because my name's mentioned and you guys are and Co.
Dear Asia and Co. Like, there's only 2 people for the podcast. Tanya's Co now.
Dear Asia and Co.
Very offended.
What story would you most like to see Lucasfilm develop into a movie? And what are your predictions for the events of Episode 9? These are very different questions, so let's address the first part first. Which story would you most like to see Lucasfilm develop into a movie?
I kind of want to hear your guys' answers for this, actually, if you have
Yeah.
anything.
I wish I had thought of one.
I don't.
Anything interesting you can think of? Like, I mean, like, okay, like spin-off movies. Like, they're making a Han Solo movie, they made Rogue One, and they're
any
going to make more
character.
spin-off movies. Like, what
Oh,
character
like
do
a
you
spin-off
want?
of Star Wars?
Yeah, like, what character do you want to have, like, a film that focuses on them, and why?
I would
Maybe.
like to see a
That's
little
good.
bit of the in-between of Obi-Wan's life, like from,
that would be pretty sweet.
chopping Anakin in half to... Are we?
Yeah.
Oh, is that confirmed?
It's a confirmed
I know it's been
Kenobi
rumored for a long
movie.
time.
Well, I'm original.
Well, you want what all of us want.
Fine, R2-D2's adventures in the in-between.
Please no.
I was gonna say, all the droids.
With no subtitles.
Droids cartoon.
No
so that's
subtitles
covered.
either. You have to learn
The whole-
R2D speak.
R2D speak. They have a little dictionary you
The
can like
whole
look it
time.
up in. It's like
The
an
There
official
is
whole
dictionary.
actually.
It's like
Are you
Wall-E.
kidding me?
It's not super detailed, but there's a little Star Wars language book that I have in one of my boxes. It's
That
amazing.
you have.
Seriously?
It's in one of my boxes. I don't know where it is.
Oh,
Brandon.
man. And you didn't
5
think that
different
that would
types
be
of
vital
Chewbacca
for this
vowels.
podcast?
Forgot. I didn't think I'd need to be speaking Wookiee, okay?
We could deliver the rest
It's
of the
May the
podcast in a
4th
language only
episode.
true fans would understand.
I don't think Star Wars is like as detailed as like Lord of the Rings to have its own languages.
It's not,
basically
but it's
just like
fun still.
phrases. So,
You guys,
Obi-Wan Kenobi movie for you, Asia, and you don't have anything for.
I'm gonna try and think of
Let me
something
think,
not
you
Star
guys-
Wars
Okay, you
related.
think? Let's hear Brandon's.
All right, I would love for them to develop whether it be a high-budget TV series or a trilogy, you know what, whatever. I want it to focus on the Mandalorian culture, whether it be in the Old Republic, in between, in
Just to
the...
clarify, Mandalorians are.
They're two simple people. What Boba Fett is,
Okay.
basically.
Alright.
So they have a
simple.
rich culture in the expanded universe, or as they call it, Legends now. And there's a lot of stuff that they could hit on. And they are so cool.
Isn't
just
that
to
all
look at.
non-canon now?
It is mostly non-canon at this point.
Well,
So,
they still have a lot of. I think the Clone Wars is still canon, right?
yeah.
And they do a lot. They talk a lot about the Mandalorian history in that. So
Yeah, they do a little bit of it.
by extension, you can kind of say that like the Mandalorian Wars are like canon, which is like when the Jedi and the Mandalorians fought like 5,000 years ago or something.
Yeah, but not necessarily the specific stories.
Right? No, yeah.
Which
like,
I would
Revan and-
love, for whatever they decide to do with that, I would love to see that touched on because there's a lot of material.
Yeah, I think that'd be super cool. Do you think they should focus on like Fett, or do you think they should just?
They could.
Because if it was Fett, it'd be like a bounty hunter movie more than like Mandalorian specifically.
that would be kind of sweet, though.
Yeah, I think a Boba Fett movie would be pretty good.
That would be awesome. But they could either do it as the culture of the people on Mandalore, the surrounding areas, or they could very well just do it as the Fets, Mandalorian bounty hunters, whatever. And they could...
So if they did a movie on Fett, when would you want it to be set?
They very easily could do something after the Clone Wars, up into the point of the original trilogy.
Because he has a huge reputation by the time of like Episode 5. So,
Exactly.
like,
He has a
what-
huge reputation there.
No
Super
disintegrations.
deadly. Yeah,
I
exactly.
can have a whole
He's-
story for that. Like the end of the movie could be like him disintegrating somebody he was supposed to capture for Vader, and like that could, like, end
Exactly.
the movie. That'd be sick.
That could work very well, or they could go to after he gets himself out of the Sarlacc pit.
I would kind of want to see that just to confirm that he's still alive.
Well, it is confirmed, I believe, in one of the dictionary books. After
They confirmed it
episode-
like outside of the EU, because I mean in the EU he's like fully alive and like
Yes.
has kids and like restarts the Mandalorian clan and like does crazy
After The
stuff.
Force Awakens was released, they put out this visual dictionary, and there was a little snippet in there talking about how Boba Fett survived the Sarlacc pit, and it took him years to recover his reputation.
Oh, okay.
That's all we know, but there is
Maybe they're,
potentially a huge
Maybe
story.
they put that in there and they're like planning on making a movie of it.
I hope so.
Do you think Fett's going to be in Solo?
They
better-
probably will not do it,
He better. Be.
but I really hope that they do.
I think worst case scenario, he's going to show up for like a really short cameo.
I'd be fine with that.
I think he's at least going to show up. I don't see how they can make a movie about Han Solo in his like younger days, and Jabba's going to be in it. Jabba's got to be in it at some point, and Fett will probably come along with that.
I really hope so.
I hope that Fett has a huge role in it, and they've just like been super quiet about it.
That would make Solo worth my time.
Yeah, I'm kind of about Solo. To be
Yeah.
honest.
Man, I kind of wish that we had all already seen the Solo movie right before doing this podcast. So we
wanna-
don't
We're gonna have to do like a little addendum to this podcast, a little mini-sode, say how bad it was.
Yeah.
Although
How great it is.
I
We'll see.
actually didn't watch any trailers for it at all. And then when I went to see Infinity War in theaters, there was a trailer for it, and I was like, oh boy. And I watched the full trailer, and I'm like, okay, this is actually kind of excited now. Right. I'm surprised that it actually looks somewhat good to me.
Yep.
Yeah, it doesn't look horrible, for sure. There was this guy, back when Vine existed, who did a pretty good Han Solo impression.
I know that guy.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And I think he ended up making like a little short film about Han Solo. Part of me was hoping he would get to play Han Solo, but
That was what I was hoping to.
Everyone that knows
sure the guy they got is
him
good.
to be Han Solo.
But yeah.
He even could have passed for like a young Harrison Ford, too. That guy.
Yeah, he could have done Indiana Jones. Maybe they'll get him for young Indiana Jones.
Is that going to be a thing?
I don't know.
Probably.
I'm assuming
if they can make money off of it, then yeah.
Yeah, I'd be very surprised if there was never another Indiana Jones movie.
Yeah,
I feel like I also, to answer that question, would need to have watched Clone Wars at all, so I knew what already happened to a lot of those characters. I have very little knowledge of what happened in between some of the movies. So.
Oh yeah, the Clone Wars expands a lot on some stuff.
I've been meaning to watch it for like 10 years.
There's some
That
really...
is the most insane procrastination.
I procrastinated longer.
There's some really good things in the Clone Wars and some really lame things. So
yeah, well,
it's
Clone Wars is like so crazy because like they change directors for like episodes and like it's super obvious because especially if you're watching one after the other, like you get a set of 3 episodes where like it's super action focused and the music is like weird, weird techno, and like it's like a spy movie or something all of a sudden, and then like the next 3 episodes after that are like philosophical and it's all about the Jedi. And it's very peaceful and meditative.
Peace talks. And you're just among politicians.
Yeah, and it's just like very obviously like different directors for different like story arcs in Clone Wars.
Well, when Clone Wars started when I was a teenager, I was kind of turned off by the animation style, and I didn't think I'd ever be able to watch it because I just assumed it was really stupid and made for little kids. Because
that was kind of what I thought when I first heard of it.
I mean, I get a little judgy about animation styles sometimes, but there are shows that once I gave them a chance, despite the animation style I really liked, like Phineas and Ferb, for instance. But Clone Wars...
So annoying.
I will bring it up every podcast. Clone Wars, I only started to have more interest in kind of recently because of doing little voice acting gigs on the side, because a lot of them have to do with like wanting to make some fan video about Clone Wars or something. So I'd have to go online and like look up the original voice actors and try to do an impression of those voice actors. But in the meantime, I'm getting like little clips of some of the stories and like seeing like, oh, this is kind of complex. And actually, this animation isn't
some
as
of it's
bad
really dark and like
thought.
Weirdly violent for a kid's show. Like there's an episode where like clones get murdered all the time.
It's pretty brutal.
Like they get just destroyed. Like, there's an episode.
Limbs.
Dude, do you remember the episode where Asajj Ventress like stabs the guy through the heart and then kisses him and then lets him die?
Oh, yeah.
It's so weird. I saw that and I was like, what am I watching right now? It's a weird episode of Star Wars.
I think that's one of the voices I was auditioning for.
Asajj?
If she's voiced by Grey Delisle, I think so.
I think that's who voices it. It's kind of like a sort of like smooth and like menacing voice.
Yeah, there was one where it was kind of like a lower raspy voice, which is kind of harder for me.
That's probably her, yeah. So we're still on this question, actually. We've only answered it from 2 people. Do you have an answer for this, Tony? Like, what kind of spin-off movie maybe you'd be interested in? Have you thought of anything?
I would want to see one that focuses just, I guess, generally more on the Sith.
The Sith?
Yeah.
I think that'd be really interesting.
That would be
Like the origins of the Sith, maybe, or something like that. That'd be really cool.
Because I think, like, most
Sith are
of
so
what
mysterious.
I've learned about them is just by, like, Googling random stuff or, like, going on Wikipedia, and, like, just, like,
Sith.
looking at all the different ones.
Yeah.
So you've got bad guys within the Sith community and the good guys within the Sith community.
Well, they really do, actually. Like,
Yeah.
I've read... Actually, one of the amazing book that would be like perfect for adapting into a Sith movie would be the Bane books. Did you ever read those, Brandon?
I did not read those ones.
So Darth Bane is like this legendary Sith Lord. He like was the guy who...
Sorry, I was just coming up with a Batman Bane crossover line.
As soon as you snorted, I knew.
With the darkness and everything. Anyway, go on.
It could work. It could definitely work.
Yeah.
Oh, so you know how there's only ever 2 Sith? And like they like talk like, oh, it's the rule of 2. There's only supposed to be 2 Sith, the Master and Apprentice. They talk about it in episode 1 because like when Maul dies, they're like, oh, there's another Sith out there somewhere, like his master or his apprentice or whatever. Anyway, Bane's the guy who supposedly came up with that, and they like made some books, like filled that in, and they're actually really good. They're super interesting. Bane was born at a time where like the Sith, there were literally like 1,000 Sith. It's like a brotherhood of Sith. And like the entire plot of the books is kind of him like joining them and like being trained by them and becoming like super, super powerful and like realizing that like there can only be a couple of Sith, and he like basically tricks them into killing all of them, like killing each other and like murdering themselves through like this crazy Sith ritual or something like that. Anyway, it's really weird and pretty awesome.
Sounds interesting.
Ends up just him being the only Sith left after
they
that,
need
and then
to
he
make
finds
a-
an apprentice after that. and
They need to make
trains
that
him.
movie so that I will know things like
It would be
the
insane. It would
ritual.
be like a crazy, like massive war between Jedi and Sith. It would be pretty awesome.
I'm
like
willing to
there would
bet
be
somebody has written a script and is trying to get it through.
probably. I would not be surprised.
What books?
Oh, I can't remember what they're called. I think they're called Bane, like Path of Darkness or Path of something. I can't remember. I'll have to look it up.
Just Google Bane Dark
Yeah.
Star Wars.
Yes.
Some crossover is already happening.
So that was from Salacious B. Crumb. I forgot to mention who.
Oh,
those
I
questions
actually
were from.
wanted to answer this for myself. That kind of became my answer. Tawny's answer. I sort of like expanded on it, but I did have my own answer for this question that I did want to
Well,
talk
too
about.
bad. We're moving on. I'm just kidding.
Okay, the Bane books. The first one is called Star Wars Darth Bane: Path of Destruction. Okay.
Cool.
Anyway, my personal answer for this question would be I really want a Thrawn movie.
Yes.
Yeah. A Thrawn movie, or a Thrawn trilogy, or a Thrawn TV show, or a Thrawn anything, basically.
I would think it would need to be a trilogy, right?
I think if they really wanted to fully do it, yeah, maybe a trilogy.
So would it be after the books, basically? Because I know in Star Wars Rebels, Thrawn is in that.
They brought Thrawn back into Rebels, which kind of like... So Thrawn is like in a weird state, because like one of the first book series of Star Wars ever written was Thrawn Trilogy. I think like the very
I think
first
it was
book.
the first.
I think there was one book before it called like I, Jedi or something like that. And then maybe like a little bit of stuff. But like Thrawn was the first big one. Thrawn was like the first like major thing where people were like, okay, Star Wars books are like better than the movies.
So I
sometimes.
obviously know who you guys are talking about.
Yes.
But
But
for the sake of our audience, maybe.
Did we go to a panel where the guy who wrote the Thrawn series?
It's Timothy Zahn. So yeah.
Yeah, he was there. It was like a panel of like Star Wars writers, but it was cool.
It was a dream.
No, it was
Really
like
boring dream.
great dream.
Anyway, Thrawn is from the books. I'm going to talk about the book version of Thrawn because it's the more interesting one that I want to see. Mm-hmm. You read the Thrawn books, right, Brandon?
Not all of them. I read the
You
first
didn't.
one, though.
You only read the first one?
I know what happens in all.
Okay, well, you need to read the second two. They're really, really good. Or listen to the audiobooks. The audiobooks for that are actually amazing.
Good idea.
The
will
reader
do that.
for them is like just so amazing. He has like an amazing Luke impression, Han impression. He has a perfect voice for Thrawn. It's like this like really like deep, calculating, like cold voice. It's like perfect for his character. Anyway, Thrawn is a Grand Admiral in the Empire, which I think there's only supposed to be like only a couple of guys have ever reached that rank. And he was, during the movies, supposedly he was like out on the edges of the galaxy, like dealing with like a threat that was like trying to like break into the galaxy, which you find out about a little later. It's not super important now, but in the book, the Thrawn trilogy, it's called like Heir to the Empire. He comes back from the unknown regions of space with like 3 Star Destroyers and basically starts rebuilding the Empire. And the reason he's so successful, and he almost destroys the New Republic, which is like what the rebellion becomes, is he's just like a tactical genius, like ridiculous. Like he thinks everybody's moves like 10 steps ahead. He's constantly just always knowing what you're gonna do, what you want to do, what you're planning. And he's got some crazy, he just has so many moments in the books where he just like outsmarts people, and you're just like, and like the writer is amazing, and he makes it like very believable that people are falling for his tricks. And I think by the end of the Thrawn trilogy, he's like on the brink of like overthrowing the complete New Republic, and like he just barely loses and like gets betrayed by somebody. So I think a Thrawn movie would be amazing because
Sounds really cool.
yeah, I just think he's just such an interesting character because he's actually very sympathetic. You never see things in the books through his point of view. You see things through his first mate's point of view, who's like the captain of like the Star Destroyer that they're on, and everything that relates to Thrawn is through his perspective. And you kind of start out thinking like, oh, he's just some, imperial jerk, like hates people, and he's like, just like arrogant and whatever. But like he's actually like really smart, like super reasoning and like understanding. Like at one point, like somebody screws up and like lets someone get away, like they're trying to capture Luke or something like that, and they get away, and you're kind of expecting Thrawn to like execute the guy, like Darth Vader or something like that. But he actually ends up commending the guy and promoting him for like the different technique he did try that didn't work, and like he's like basically forgives him, and like everyone kind of is like awed by it because they're all used to Darth Vader just like choking people out whenever they would make any mistake. And like after that, you kind of just like are on Thrawn's side, and like by the end of the books, at least for me personally, I was almost rooting for Thrawn to like actually win, which is kind of a weird thing. But I think that the movies, I think a movie about him would be great. I don't know. There'd be a lot to expand on it. Although it would be kind of weird if they did it. If they made a movie on it and it was set right after Episode 6, it'd be kind of weird because they have to find actors for Luke, Han, and Leia. It'd have to be set. It'd have to be set before Episode 4 or something like that, maybe.
Or maybe CG will just be
so good that we don't even need real actors anymore.
That Leia was okay.
Yeah, although she was only on screen for like 5 seconds.
I know.
If she had been on screen for like the whole movie, it might have...
I can't imagine the rendering time that went into just that 5 seconds. Like, that was all I was thinking about at the end of the movie. I liked the idea of catching up on the Star Wars books in Audible form, though.
I highly recommend it.
And I will recommend it a lot harder if and when Audible becomes a sponsor of the podcast.
I was going to say earlier we should have a Wish now as a sponsor, since you mentioned them earlier.
I take that back. I'm editing it out. Blank.com. That's what it'll sound like. I gotta stop giving out all these free sponsors.
Yeah. Stupid. Okay, so there's the second part of this question, and it was, what are your predictions for the events of Episode 9? Guys.
Yeah, I got nothing.
That's a really tough one.
I just don't I don't like saying my predictions out loud.
Go ahead.
After Episode 8, all of everyone's predictions went out the door.
Yeah.
Rian Johnson was like, nope.
All of mine were gone.
All of the, from what most of us believe, all of J.J. Abrams' little things that he set up went out the door as well. So me personally, I'm like, I don't know where it's going exactly. It very well could have some weird time jump, and it's going to be the new rebellion is going to be rebuilt.
The new rebellion, because of the third time that they've reformed.
Exactly.
The resistance is down to like 10 people at the end of Episode 8.
Exactly. It could either do a time jump where it's rebuilt, or it could just be immediately after Episode 8, which is basically what happened which was what Episode 8 was to Episode 7. Mm-hmm. And they'll just get some kind of miracle to fight off Kylo Ren and the First Order. It would
have to be a miracle. There's literally 20 people left.
Exactly.
They all fit on the Millennium Falcon. So also, I want to talk about that more later, actually. But
yeah, that was a very loss-heavy movie.
Anyway, my prediction for Episode 9 is we know J.J. Abrams is directing it, and they're probably going to be done filming it soon, really. Realistically, right? Because it's coming out next year, so like they'll have to be done filming it soon because that amount of CGI must take a long time. Anyway, I think it's going to be J.J. Abrams kind of just trying to pick up the pieces of his plot points that he had set up, because Episode 7 clearly sets up like a lot of specific things that are like going to be expanded on. Like the Knights of Ren are mentioned several times, and they're even showing a flashback like several Knights of Ren, and like Kylo Ren's name is like, that's his name, like he's Kylo Ren, and that Ren part is like he's a knight of this order of Ren or something. And they are completely absent in Episode 8. They don't show up at all. They're never mentioned, not once.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, most people did, I think. That was what Rian Johnson wanted, was for you to forget about them.
I'm just one of the lemmings who...
Led by the nose by Rian Johnson. Anyway, I think Episode 9, as far as what's actually going to happen in it, Leia's going to be off screen 98% of the time. I think, yeah. I'm so surprised that they didn't kill her off in Episode 8.
I know. Yeah. I was kind of actually mad that they didn't.
Yeah, so was I.
Because they had a perfect opportunity.
I know. We literally all thought she was dead. I kind of want to talk about that more later. Because
I didn't think she was going to be in that movie as much as she was.
But then she just flies through space.
Yeah.
I was like, not expecting her to be the last one of the three to survive.
No, I was not either. I thought it was going to be Luke.
Yeah.
Which I would have been fine with.
Me too.
Anyway, Episode 8, I feel like Episode 8 is going to take up the entire rest of the podcast once we actually start talking about it.
Yeah.
So we can put it off for a little bit.
My predictions for Episode 9 are that it's going to basically be the same as 3 and 6. Because they're all always the same.
That has been the pattern of them. It's just
ring theory.
It's just the same things over and over. I don't know, Last Jedi like seems different until you like think about it more, and then you're like, actually, it's basically Empire Strikes Back in reverse order. Like with the Siege of Hoth just being at the end of the movie instead of the beginning.
True.
And they even make it like a snow planet and you're like, oh great, it's another snow planet. And then they have that one scene of some dude tasting the snow for some weird reason and be like, oh, it's salt, it's not snow. Don't worry guys, we're not completely copying Hoth. It's a salt planet.
Visually stunning.
Visually, it was incredible. I'm not going to even argue that. Oh, it was
I
amazing
really want to
looking.
visit that place where it was filmed because I didn't even... It's a real place.
Really?
Yeah. So somebody asked me what my favorite body of water was, and I was like, well, I'm going to have to do some research before I come up with conclusive answers. So I, looked at all these extremely, remote bodies of water, and it was tough choosing, but then I came across those salt flats.
Salt flats.
And I was like, this is my choice, before I even realized that's where they filmed that scene on Star Wars.
That's really cool.
Does it actually have, this bright red dust underneath all the salt?
I don't think so.
Probably not.
But I'm not sure.
That'd be a little too perfect.
The reason I chose it, though, I had to choose it and then I had to give my reasons, in adjectives. And I was like, because it, is otherworldly, it's, kind of iridescent, it's just, it looks like it's on a different planet.
Is it the Bonneville Salt Flats in Bonneville in Utah?
I think... I can't remember the name.
I know people that have taken, portraits there, and it always looked really cool.
Anyway, I think Episode 9, I think Kylo Ren's going to be the main villain. He's going to bring in the Knights of Ren. They're going to be semi-major characters. I think Rey is going to spend some time trying to rebuild the rebellion. Leia's going to be off-screen recruiting people or something like that for the new resistance. The new resistance. And I think it's going to end in some big showdown between Kylo and Rey and
Yeah, but what if Rey changes to the dark side? And
I don't think she's going to.
If
If she was going to,
really
I think it was going to
hoping.
happen in 8.
Yeah, I know they were trying to
Because
lead
they
us
brought
in
it
that
so
direction.
close to her almost doing it in Episode 8 that it was sort of like maybe she is, and I feel like they used
really...
that point already, that plot point of her almost turning evil. They used it.
I kind of wanted to go a little further.
Are you a Reylo supporter, Asia? Is that what you're saying?
That is not what I am
Kylo
saying.
and Rey kiss each other? Is that what you
But
wanted?
maybe a little.
There was definitely some
more so than
that shirtless
Finn.
scene with Kylo.
Yeah.
I laughed.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, I have no idea what's going to happen in 9.
My
prediction.
my predictions all went out the window from the first second of 8.
Yeah, when Luke drank that blue milk sauce,
That's not what I meant.
I think we all were like, okay, no one knows what's happening anymore. This is off the rails.
I think the biggest shock to me was that Rey's genealogy didn't matter at all.
Yeah,
I was very convinced she was related to Palpatine.
I thought she was a Kenobi.
I wanted her to be a Kenobi.
Yeah, I think a lot of people did. I kind of like that they didn't do that because it sort of brings it back to the original thing of Star Wars, which
They're
was
trying to move on, yeah.
we'll know that a nobody can become a somebody. Because Luke was
right.
nobody important. He was just some farm kid and
So
then becomes
we
a
thought.
hero.
Yeah.
And then he's like, oh no, he's actually the son of the most powerful guy ever. Okay. But the most powerful guy ever was a nobody who was born, randomly on the same planet that Luke was, which is a weird coincidence. But anyway.
No, not a
Magic.
weird coincidence. That's exactly what I'm saying. It's always repeating itself, the story. So should we move on to our next
Yeah, I
question?
think this is from Aston. Why are the prequels disliked so much? And what could they have done better? Why do you hate the prequels, Brandon?
That's a joke. I love the prequels.
You really do?
I love them.
Okay, you love Phantom Menace,
Wow.
and you love Attack of the
Okay.
Clones.
They are my lower liked ones. You know what? I love them all. I don't care.
Okay, now when you say you love them...
Episode 3.
Do you love them as movies, or do you love them as world building for the Clone Wars?
I just love them.
Okay. So when Anakin is like, I killed them all! The men, not just the men, but the women and children too.
Well,
That was like, you really like that scene?
It created some great memes, at least.
That's true. There's a lot of great memes about that.
That's a great silver lining to have for a
People-
movie. Memes.
Not just for men, but for women and
I
children
think
too.
this is important. How old were you when you first saw it? Because
See-
you were pretty old, I think.
I'm younger than this dude. I'm
Younger
20.
Yeah,
me.
but person here.
Oh, I did see the movies later than
Yeah,
that.
you saw the
That's
movies
true.
later.
I
was like
was, let's see, episode 1 came out in 99, so how old was I?
So I was
sand. It gets in everything. It ruins everything.
I was 10,
I was
so
like
it was
6
kind of cool to me.
or something. No,
was
5.
pretty
That
young.
was who it was aimed at. Was 10-year-olds.
It wasn't until I was older that I realized, wow, what is this?
That was how I was too. I thought Revenge of the Sith was awesome because the fight scenes are cool. Mm-hmm. And then I went back and rewatched it when I was like 16 or 17, and I was like, oh my god.
I don't want to.
60% of this movie is horrible, cringy romantic stuff. 20% of it is boring beyond belief. and then like the rest of it's just like cool fight scenes.
I was
I
like
don't
the
wanna
pod
rewatch it.
racing.
Pod racing. No, that's pod racing.
Okay, so people don't like the prequels because, yes, there was terrible writing in it,
Terrible acting.
super corny. Yes, it was super corny, all that.
dialogue.
It was also vastly different from what people that like Star Wars were used to.
That is very good. actually.
But it was, well, the world itself was just different. The Empire just made it life terrible for a lot of people.
I think the best thing that came out of the prequels is the world building.
Exactly.
I think the world is very interesting, of like a Jedi Order being involved with the galaxy and like sending people out like to, broker peace and stuff like that. I think that's really interesting. I just think they executed it bad.
Exactly. It just wasn't quite executed perfectly. It created it created a ton of really good stories, though, whether it be through the books or whatever, the comics. I mean, I was young when it came out, and I watched all of them as they came out, so I loved it, regardless of how terrible they were.
I think that's a little difference between you and me, because I already liked Star Wars and like the overall story before I watched them, so I feel like that kind of tainted my view of them a little bit. And I was a little older too.
That they were,
13.
they were supposed to be made to draw in a younger audience. Like, that was the whole point.
That's also true.
Well,
So,
That's
I
kind
mean,
of
yeah,
like
no,
the
it is true. No,
reboot of
I mean, it's
Doctor
true
Who.
that that's what they were doing. I just have a problem with that.
that doesn't make it better,
Jar Jar
but I'm
Binks.
just saying that's probably why they were pretty cheesy.
there actually is a good question I forgot to write down
I'm only 2 degrees away from Jar Jar Binks.
about Darth Jar Jar that we should answer at some point.
Oh, man.
The Darth Jar Jar theory.
I loved that
That was
theory.
a
amazing.
good read.
When I heard about it, when I heard about Darth Jar Jar,
I
might as well talk
believed
about it now while we're talking about the prequels. I thought it was a joke. I was like, okay, it's just some funny thing on the internet. Some guy rationalized a couple things and made it like a joke. I read it, and I swear by the end of it, I was like, this is legitimately what they originally
I would be
intended.
too.
This was in the script. This is what they hired that guy on for. This was the entire point of Jar Jar. And then they threw it all out the window, and people were like...
Didn't it make the movies better to believe that
Yes,
that
it does
was the
actually make
case?
it a lot better.
So I chose to believe it. I was like, I don't care if it's true. Yeah. Now the movies are better in my
They
head.
are better. Jar Jar has a purpose now. The scenes he's in have a purpose.
So
The Darth Jar Jar theory...
I
There are literal scenes. There are scenes in episode. There are actual scenes in episode 1 where Jar Jar literally uses Force abilities. Sorry, I just hit the table because I'm getting emphatic about this.
it's getting very
There are scenes where Jar Jar. Okay, there are scenes where like Qui-Gon Jinn is like talking about like these really important like plot moving conversations where he's saying stuff like, we need to take Anakin in and train him to be a Jedi and blah blah blah, and Jar Jar's like in the background of the conversation and his lips are moving and he's like moving his hands,
Yeah,
like
I
he's
know.
moving the conversation forward
I
and like
know.
mind tricking people, like influencing. It's really weird.
It really explains why he's so good at like fighting and then just
Yes! Oh, that's a great point. Okay, he destroys like 40 battle droids, like
On
3
accident.
tanks, on accident, and 3 tanks.
Drunken Master style.
Yeah, exactly. The drunken master style. That was intentional. And actually, beyond all the theories, as far as like hard proof goes, the guy who voiced him.
he's friends. The actor is friends with the parents of a kid in my class.
Really?
So that's why I'm like, I'm only 2 degrees away from Jar Jar.
Hey. Anyway, yeah. So Ahmed Best, they tweeted the theory at him. Like, what do you think of this? Like, you would know, right? And he was like, a lot of that is actually somewhat true. And he said that.
No.
He said that.
He's
He said something like
No.
that. And then he even said that, like, all I'll say on that is that there were a lot more plans for Jar Jar as a character, but then the fan reception to episode 1 scared George Lucas, and he rewrote Jar Jar's character
To make
after
him
that.
worse? I don't
Well, they
understand.
didn't just write him out of the movies. Like, he was a huge
very
character. In
angry
episode 1,
about
he was a huge character. He filled up so much screen time
Yeah,
in
I
episode 1.
remember.
And then episode 2, he was hardly in it. And in episode 3, he literally had, like, one scene.
See,
One scene
I
in
remember
episode
episode 1 best of all, the prequels, because it's the only one we owned.
Oh.
So we watched it a lot. So I saw the original trilogy when I was really little, like in 5 or 6, but,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I didn't understand too much of what was going on. I liked R2-D2 and C-3PO, and I liked Luke Skywalker a lot, actually, and I liked the Ewoks. And
Yes. Oh, man.
I remember my dad renting the Great Ewok Adventure for me from the library.
Yeah.
I liked Star Wars, though. It was my first sci-fi anything that I liked. Like, I didn't like Star Trek or anything, but Star Wars is definitely more appealing to younger kids. And then the prequels came out. Gosh, how old was I? I was still, like, a kid. I was definitely not a teenager or even a preteen.
Came out in 2001.
Okay, so I was...
About 99.
Oh, it did. You're right.
So I was 10. I was very angry, I remember, because my dad would he went to see the midnight screening, and he wouldn't take me, and I was furious. And then the second prequel came out, and the same thing happened. And then, but I do remember when we all went to see it for his second time and my first time, when Jar Jar Binks appeared, and they said his name for the first time, my eyes got...
Say Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah, my eyes got wide, and I was like, oh no. And I looked, and everyone in my family was looking at me like, because my whole life my nickname has been Jar Jar.
Oh.
Yeah.
And so
he's like the clumsy,
and I was the clumsy one.
Dude, imagine how great that would have been if Darth Jar Jar was in the movies and true.
Yeah.
Because everyone's making fun of you, like, haha, Jar Jar, and then he ends up being an evil mastermind.
I know. And that would make more sense with my character, to be honest. No. No, but... Okay. No, but, yeah, of course, ever since then, it's never been Jar Jar anymore. It's Jar Jar Binks that my family will call me, and I knew that was going to happen.
Curie just calls you Zhazh now. But
Curie's got like 20 nicknames for me. Let's not get into it. Yeah, and everyone. She also calls me Aesop for who knows why. But then episode...
That came from Aesop.
I know, but... Episode 2 came out.
Who knows why, but I know why.
Stop taking me literally. Episode 2 came out. He did the same thing, midnight thing, and then I barely remember anything from episode 2 except that
There's not much to remember.
I remember the romance thing being like, ugh. And then the third one came out my sophomore year of high school, and it was perfect timing for me to like it because I was angsty teen wearing all black in my sophomore.
Yeah, I definitely feel like Star Wars hit puberty right before Episode 3 was.
I don't think you've changed. You're wearing all black right now.
That's a coincidence. These were my pajamas, and I didn't have anything to change into. Anyway, it was all
her beatnik pajamas.
Like, it hit me so hard, like the whole emotional thing, like the tragedy, because I felt everything like that so much more strongly when I was that age.
Like, I'm just like Anakin.
So it was perfect, which is why I don't want to rewatch it, because it will not have the emotional resonance it had for me back then.
There's still some good stuff in that movie.
So
honestly.
I remember it fondly.
I love episode 3.
I think Hayden Christensen,
do not care.
I think is actually a decent actor. I just think that the directing from Lucas was so terrible.
I don't know, I saw him in Jumper.
Oh, I didn't watch Jumper.
Oh,
so
God, don't.
Was he terrible in that?
It wasn't that good.
When he was Anakin after he turned to the dark side and was like evil and freaking out, and like I think he was pretty good actually. I thought he was decent.
I liked it.
Like when he yells like I hate you at Obi-Wan, I felt like that was I don't know. It hit me when I watched
that last scene was like
14.
It hurt.
That last scene was my favorite scene to reenact with my friends when we had lightsabers.
It's an intense scene, and that's the part I played on Lego
do it
Star Wars.
sometimes.
Yes, that's a fun fight.
We're all adults.
Hey, that's why we can discuss this, because we remember.
So anyway, basically, to answer your question, why are the prequels disliked so much? Because Jar Jar Binks was not the ultimate Lord of the Sith, and what could they have done better? Made Jar Jar the ultimate Lord of the Sith. Next question.
Wait, hold on. I just want to, advocate for Brandon's position on this real quick.
Oh, do you hate Darth Jar Jar?
It's like, as Asia brought out in her last podcast, it's like I watch it, and it's like I start to believe it, but then I'm like, what? No, I can't believe this.
It's like believing in flat Earth or something.
Exactly.
You're like, this actually kind of makes sense.
This is a very convincing
argument.
I saw arguments against it, and I chose to ignore them, like many flat earthers. But I meant more your position on loving the prequels, because I don't think that's something you should be as judged as harshly as some people might judge you for. Because it's like saying...
She's not saying she's judging you for it.
Okay, so for me, I'm a big Doctor Who fan. I love, as a whole, Doctor Who. Are there some episodes or entire seasons that are not my favorite? Yes. But I would still say that I love them, and I'm still going to watch them, and they're always going to be part of my collection, because I don't hate them. It's just like they're not necessarily as good as my favorites. So like the love and hate thing, it's different. In the end, the prequels are still Star Wars, and they tell some decent Star Wars stories. Yep. And they're an important part of the canon. So I think that's how I feel about them.
Partly it's just the nostalgia of growing up with it too.
Yeah, that's a big part of it.
Yeah.
The stuff I do like from the prequels.
I still will
is
watch the
basically
Ewok Adventure.
Although
So bad. It's horrible, but I love it.
I think Duel of the Fates was probably the best thing to come out of any Star Wars. Well, no, maybe not any Star Wars movie, but the prequels.
Duel of Fates was.
It is just such a good
amazing.
fight. It's such a good fight.
Did you bring up the Ewok Adventure in the last episode?
Yes, I did. Because in the last podcast, we had a question of, like, favorite worst movie, and I said the Ewok Adventure.
All right, mine was Drop Dead Fred.
Also really good.
So good.
Okay.
It's not even bad.
Should we move on to the next question?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Any non-canon Legends character you wish they could add to the movies?
I feel like we kind of covered that already.
Yeah, we kind of did a little bit, but, like, once again, my answer would be Thrawn. So.
Well, he's already canon, technically.
I know, but I want the full Thrawn to be canon. Everything he did. What about you? What character do you want to be canon? You didn't answer this question.
That's a tough one. I go between the 2003 ARC Trooper Fordo,
Oh my god.
ARC 77.
You're kidding me.
That 2003 Clone Wars cartoon was amazing.
It was. It's the best Star Wars action of anything ever.
The people who made Samurai Jack made it.
I know, yeah. That's why
It's
it's
amazing.
So good.
Oh, well,
So
that Mace Windu scene
sounds
where he's
promising.
like tearing them apart with his bare hands.
it's amazing.
Literally punching like super battle droids into like mush.
Yeah,
Oh, man.
that show was amazing. So it would be between him, or there's this expanded universe character who is actually the son of a clone trooper named Connor.
Oh, I actually don't know about this
And
guy.
it's
Connor, what a weird Star Wars name.
it's a big long story, but basically Jango Fett assassinates one of his own clones that escaped, had a kid, and basically supports him financially when he was like, "Oh, I basically have a son."
Well, he's kind of like Jango's grandson almost in like a weird way.
Kinda, yeah.
That's really weird.
So it's a story of him
What book
and
is that
how it's a comic.
Oh, okay.
I forget the exact. It's called Blood Ties, I think. But it's basically his story and how Boba Fett one day finds him. Basically, how they end up teaming up together. It's pretty
That's
cool.
actually really cool.
It is cool.
Since he's the son of a clone, does he still have the advanced aging thing, or does he age normally?
It was this clone escaped early in the development, I guess.
And then like had
So
his
he
kid.
just had a normal kid.
That's cool.
Yes.
I feel like
So
that idea.
I would like to see
feel
maybe
like
a
the
Boba
clone-
Fett movie incorporate him. That would be cool.
Connor. I'd be down. And yeah, my answer is still Thrawn. Although my second answer would be Revan.
I'm very pleased that you guys have so many thoughts.
Yeah.
Because I would not know how to answer this question.
Neither would I, honestly, and I don't think I have an answer for this question,
Yeah, me either.
at least.
Because I don't know who any of them are.
All the characters you know are already in the movies.
They
so
are canon, so. Yeah.
All right,
maybe
so
some of the like Ewoks that like got their own little stuff. Maybe that's who you.
yeah, that one Ewok.
That one.
Wicked?
Yes, Wicket.
That's the only one whose name I know. And I didn't really remember till he said that. All right. So, next question from Aston is favorite droid? Parentheses. There is a right answer.
I disagree with that. There is a right answer because I can guarantee the answer I'm going to give isn't his right answer.
What is your answer?
Mine's that one that goes Roger, Roger. Just kidding.
I want to give my answer.
B1 Battle Droid. That's a valid answer.
Who's your favorite droid, Brandon?
I really don't know.
Pick one. If
I
you had to marry a droid, which droid?
It would be that medical droid at the end of episode 3 delivering Luke and Leia. Ooba.
Yeah, she does seem very maternal and caring.
She can support me with her job as a medical droid.
Oh my god.
Brandon's favorite droid is
Very practical of you.
I was going to say, Tony, you're bumping the table so much.
Your mom's bumping the table.
Your face is...
Well, you guys are both 50% your mom, so that's technically true.
Yeah. Well, I was going to go with C-3PO because I always identified with him a lot when I was growing up because I was like I was a big scaredy cat growing up and a know-it-all. So I really understood him.
Like, I relate to C-3PO.
But if we're choosing, like, if we had to marry a droid, then it would be that...
I like how you just taken Aston's question and just completely changed it.
if you had
So
to
by
marry
favorite, you mean the one you would want to marry.
then it would be that one in Rogue One, because I loved him.
Oh, yeah?
K2SO.
He's very,
Yeah.
he's
No,
very sassy.
K, yeah.
Yeah, I like sassy.
K2SO.
Yeah.
It's like,
Right?
important
Yeah,
trait for me.
That was gonna be my answer.
Oh, I
Yeah.
took it. So
He's my favorite.
you have to marry BB-8.
I relate to him too more than, C-3PO, but
He's got
I
a
just,
great
he's
voice
so,
actor.
he's so snarky. I love it. Mm-hmm. It's great.
It is. It really is.
That's why we are never going to have loving, caring relationships.
Our love of snark.
Did you guys have answers?
Who's your favorite droid?
I said K2SO.
Who?
K2SO.
Oh, is that the one from Rogue One?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's...
Couldn't remember.
K2SO,
Tawny knew something
whatever.
he
It's
didn't
the same
know.
thing, basically.
My favorite droid is HK-47.
I knew it.
Yeah, of course.
Is that a gun?
How did you answer HK-47? I thought that's what your favorite droid was.
He's cool.
He's amazing. Did you play both of the Knights of the Old Republic games?
No.
Oh, well, that's why.
I know he's cool, though.
Okay, well, he's cool, but he's hilarious, mainly. HK-47 is...
That looks like a straight-up Doctor Who villain.
Yeah.
Did you look at HK-47? Yeah, he could definitely fit
He
in
looks exactly like, well...
He's like a bronze
Like
Cyberman.
Yeah.
No, there's
He will be eaten,
the
eaten.
new Pacific Rim. One of the Jaegers looks
Don't
exactly
bring up
like him.
that movie on this podcast.
I haven't seen it. I just saw it.
It's okay to bring up that movie on this podcast. I have mixed feelings.
I hate that movie.
I did not see it.
The first one or the new
horrible.
one?
Don't waste your time.
Listen,
I'll go see it.
I did not like it. When I first saw it, I was
The
like...
first one or the second one?
The first one.
I love it.
Listen,
I'm not really crazy about mechs in general, so I feel like that kind of...
me either. So, but the first one, it was mostly the ending that I was like, well, this movie, forget it. Like, I just hated the ending so much. But
What did happen?
in
to me?
retrospect, there were aspects of that movie I loved, like the side characters. So, yeah,
Ugh.
You know, I wouldn't have any appreciation left for that movie at all if it weren't for, like, Tumblr teens who brought out the good aspects of the side characters. And I was like, you're right.
Just
they were
further
funny.
proof that you shouldn't watch that movie.
You gotta go...
If that's your reason for liking
You gotta
it, is
go
Tumblr teens.
into watching Pacific Rim expecting what you're gonna get. That's why I loved it. I knew it was gonna be terrible.
I mean, I didn't
and
have a
just
lot of
rolled
mech
with it.
experience before that movie.
To be fair, I had different expectations when I saw it. I thought it was going to be, reasonably decent acting, but it wasn't. So I just...
I expected the special effects to be believable. They weren't.
Yeah. It was just really... It was a movie that I would only watch again to watch in like a Mystery Science Theater 3000 sort of style, where you're just sitting there making fun of it.
I do like doing that.
Okay, so we covered that. We have one more question.
My favorite droid. Sorry, I said it was HK-47, but I didn't say why. He's from the games. He's from Knights of the Old Republic, which is set like 5,000 years before Episode 1 or something crazy like that. And he's an assassin. He's an assassin droid. It is very long. It was a long, long, long time ago.
What type
In the
of
same
assassin?
galaxy. A droid assassin.
Like...
The kind who really enjoys his job.
Oh, okay, cool.
He hates humans and loves killing them. And he calls them meat
Wow.
bags. He refers to them as
Perfectly
meat
qualified.
bags. He's like, shall we find a meat bag to kill to cheer ourselves up, master? Like, he's asked your player, like, questions like that. And if you do, like, the evil choices in that game, and there are a lot of them, and they are ridiculously, hilariously evil, like, cartoon, mustache-twirlingly evil.
Oh, melodramatic. I like that.
Of just, like, murdering someone for literally no reason. They're like, please, I'm so poor and desperate. Can you just, my inheritance, I need you to help me collect it, and you can get it for them. And they're like, oh, thank you so much. And then you can be like, actually, I'm going to keep this. And she's like, why? My family's going to starve. And you're like, okay, I'll just kill you so you don't have to worry about that. And she's like, what? And then you just murder her. It's so ridiculously
you
evil.
shouldn't know. You should have been choosing the good guy option.
Oh, I always do every option and I reload and like do every option and like see which one I want to pick. I always, my first inclination is to do the evil ones because it's hilarious, but then I actually feel like genuinely bad about it. And I'm like, I can't do it. I have to like reload.
I did some voice acting a while back for this Fallout mod, and it was
A little gasp from Brandon in the corner.
I was playing this character who had been enslaved and was trying to escape, and so she was asking the main character for help, and like I had to do all the different responses.
Record lines for when the player wants to murder you.
Yeah, like some of the responses, I was like, I don't even know what his lines are, but what the heck,
What
dude?
is he saying?
Like, what are you doing? What kind of person is playing this game?
Why is one of my responses no please, stop, oh god, the pain?
Similar, and also I got director's notes. Can you make this sound more desperate and afraid?
Imagine
Sure.
you're on the brink of death.
Like, alright, fine, I'm gonna have to wait till no one's home so I can scream that loud. So,
Okay, I think we are on to our last question.
we are indeed. How
The
fast
big
it
one.
went.
This is our last one from Aston, and he asks, Episode 8 thoughts. Should they have kept the same director for all 3?
I feel like those are 2 really big questions.
Commence rants.
I'm gonna say yes. They should have kept the same director.
They should have kept JJ.
I 100% agree. I don't really like the direction he was taking it, but at least it was going to be one direction.
That's how I feel about Star Trek.
He had an idea, and he had a plan, and Rian Johnson just ruined it. I remember after... It was before Episode 8 was released. It was an article about how when Daisy Ridley heard that J.J. Abrams was going to be doing Episode 9, she literally broke down in tears of joy that he was coming back to them. Mm. So, if you enjoy having your current director directing you, you probably wouldn't exactly have that reaction to it.
There are tears from like PTSD of being directed by Rian Johnson. Just like finally it's over.
So I think that yes, JJ should have taken care of Episode 8 as well.
Mainly for Daisy Ridley's sake.
Yes.
I don't know how much
he?
of that has to do with plot points, though, and how much of it just has to do with that working relationship. Because having worked under many different directors, sometimes it has nothing to do with the story. It's like, this director is organized and easy to work with and knows exactly what he wants and is also kind about getting what he wants. This director is mean and disorganized, doesn't know what he wants, and is going to blame that on you. Like, so maybe Rian Johnson's just a jerk. I don't know.
That's what I like to think.
That does make it easier.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think J.J. Abrams definitely should have directed all 3. I don't really like the choice of J.J. Abrams directing all 3. I mean, directing the movies in general, because I feel like he's kind of... His directing style, I feel like, is too in tune with what fans want, if that makes any sense. Yeah, it's a bit pandering. I just feel like Episode 7 had so many scenes where it was like, oh yeah, so cool, awesome, and it was just kind of like, okay, but why did we really need that scene?
It really had to be, though, for that one.
For some stuff, it makes sense. For the first one, the first movie coming back, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that Episode 7... While it could have been better, it was what it needed to be.
Okay, I'll say this. I liked the specific scenes where they like really heavily hit nostalgia. I was okay with that. Like when Han walks into the Millennium Falcon and he's like, "Oh, Chewie, we're home." Like I love that scene. I thought it was great. It was like super, expected.
Everyone
and,
in the theater cheers.
Obvious, but it was still great. It still made me feel like amazing and just like so happy. Like just, that scene was so good. But like I feel like the plot of like Starkiller Base was just kind of like, okay, why are we doing super weapon again? Like you could have done so many different things. Like why is the only major threat that's interesting in Star Wars gigantic star destroying, planet destroying, whatever?
I know.
And I also really, really did not like how they just blew up the New Republic. And you never get to see anything. Like,
yeah, I was like, wait, that looks like a cool planet.
They destroy like all of them at once. They destroy like 6 systems. Okay.
So for my entire life, every time I thought about that scene of Leia's planet, like, getting blown up and Obi-Wan's reaction, it breaks my heart a little bit. And then in Episode 7, they're just like, pew, 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 pew.
I know, it was just kind of like, there they all go. There's one scene of somebody on the planet being like, uh-oh, and then it all blowing up.
Like, I'm on a balcony.
What's that red light in the sky? Uh-oh. Yeah, the main reason why I hated that was because the entire point of, like, 4, 5, and 6 is overthrowing the Empire and establishing a new, like, better government, basically. That's the main, purpose of the characters, right? Like, it becomes about family, mainly, but, like, the underlying purpose of the rebellion is, overthrow this evil dictatorship. And they succeed. They finally succeed. It's really hard. They finally do it. They, against all the odds, whatever. And then they just kind of wipe the slate clean and reset everything, and they're like, the bad guys are in power again, and now it's the resistance instead of the rebellion, which is just, I don't know, whatever.
Episode 7, I was too exhausted to be hypercritical, because I had been standing in line for 3 hours in my outfit specifically curated for this movie, trying to cover my ears as the people coming out of the movie came out, because they were all like, had mischievous looks on their faces. Han
Solo got stabbed? Wow.
I was like going to leave my place at the front of the line to beat someone up if they tried to pull out. Like at that point I was so tired. And I somehow managed to get a seat like right, that perfect seat, that sweet spot.
Nice.
Dead middle. But it was so fun. It's so fun being in a crowd of people who are like all really into it and anticipating, because like every little thing.
When I first saw Force Awakens, I enjoyed it immensely the first time I saw it. I was like, this is amazing. And then I thought about it more, and I realized I didn't have any desire to see it a second time, and I still never have.
I think I've seen it like one
Which I
more
feel like
time.
I kind of should. Brandon saw it like 30 times.
I loved it. The nostalgia in it was great. I recognize all of its flaws.
Mm-hmm.
I saw it 10 times in the theaters.
Dude, you know, I think when you've got
Just
like
so
a
much
certain
money,
love...
like I can't.
Justify spending $140 to see Star
Yeah,
Wars 10 times.
exactly.
I love Star Wars. What can I say?
Doctor Who is possibly like one of the most flawed. It's very easy to find the flaws, either with the effects, always the effects,
Especially with the effects.
but sometimes with the acting, sometimes with the plot. Like in the last couple of seasons, there were a couple plots that were just absolutely nonsensical, and I was like, "What even was this episode?" But that really just does not lower my love for the show as a whole. And even I'll find something good about that episode because I've been waiting for this episode to come out, you know? And it's not like I was not entertained. It's just that later on, upon reflection, I'm like, that didn't make sense. So I feel like in a lot of nerdy things, there's two mindsets. There's the one where I am in the moment enjoying it for the first time. Mm-hmm. And then there's the one where I've decided to dedicate more of my thought processes to thinking about this in retrospect and analyzing it and picking it apart. So it kind of depends on how much you just want to enjoy it and how much more enjoyment you get from like picking it apart. If it ruins it for you to pick it apart, then maybe it's not your show. I don't know. But I think that's probably a dilemma that a lot of people find themselves getting into.
Yeah, I definitely have that problem. Mm-hmm. Any, especially Star Wars, because it's like so rooted in my childhood and like just emotionally, like awesome Star Wars, lightsabers, Jedis, whatever. Like that feeling for me as a kid is like so deeply rooted, and I have so many years of history with Star Wars that like any Star Wars anything I'm gonna immediately love without really any control over it. And then like the adult side of my mind that I have now, the almost adult side of my mind that I have now will come in afterwards and kind of like pick it apart, and I'm sort of like but like emotionally I loved Force Awakens. And emotionally, I liked Last Jedi. But yeah, I think that, back to the actual question that was asked, I do think J.J. Abrams should have directed all three. He had very clear things that he was setting up. He was building up Snoke to be like this huge major character, because not just, in the scenes that he was actually in, but like Luke and Leia both talk. Han and Leia, jeez. Both talk about Snoke like they knew him. Like they know him specifically. Like they're like, oh, Snoke did this, Snoke did that, etc., etc. Like they had some kind of actual contact with him. Like he's this known person. And I feel like that was all going to be explained in J.J. Abrams' version of the next couple movies. And then Rian Johnson was like, I don't really like this Snoke character. I want Kylo Ren to be the main bad guy. So we're going to have this scene where he somehow cheeses out the most powerful Force user we've ever seen in anything ever. Like, Snoke is so ridiculously OP. In the one scene, like in the two scenes that he gets to use his Force powers, he is beyond OP. Like, Rey and Kylo literally couldn't do anything to him. He, like, didn't even have to move. And he was, like, throwing them around the room like rag dolls.
Yeah, I did. So that was probably where my ability to suspend disbelief got really challenged, was in that scene. Because as much as I emotionally wanted Snoke to get owned
yeah, so
in
did
that scene, I was like, from everything you've shown me about him up to this point, and everything you've shown me about Kylo up to this point, there's no way Kylo is so in control of his thoughts and emotions that he can trick Snoke like that. It's not gonna happen.
Especially since Snoke was like... it's so funny, because even within the movie, there's precedent for Snoke not being manipulated and not being tricked by anything. Because he actually set up Kylo and Rey's, like, Force connection or whatever, and, like, did that on purpose to mess with them and to get Rey, like, in his custody. Like, he did that on purpose. Like, he knows Kylo so well and has such, like, deep control over him that he can, like, literally link him to another person across the galaxy. But he doesn't have a deep enough read on him to know that he's gonna kill him. Like,
Is it possible that he wanted to be killed?
And he's coming back.
Powerful?
I say yes. Now, I don't think this is the case because I don't think that they thought this deeply into it, and I don't think that they would be able to explain it well enough in episode 9 to make up for it. But, like, when you watch it, he's literally, in that scene, he literally says, I can see you turning the lightsaber towards your true enemy.
Yeah.
He literally says that. And it's like, how did you not know that it's literally you?
Yeah.
So I'm like, I think he knew.
I felt like they were dumbing it down a bit.
I thought the same exact thing. When Snoke got stabbed by the lightsaber, I thought he was just gonna like be like, "Oh no," and then be like, "Ha ha ha! You really think that was gonna kill me, dude?" Like, and he just like heals himself like some crazy force power, or like he just doesn't even need his internal organs or some crazy. Even when he was like, and then fell in half. Even then, I was still expecting him to like reattach himself and like,
I was not
resurrect like some kind of like horrible force zombie and be like, "Dude, look at me! I have been killed like 10 times. Do you see this face? This is not the face of a healthy, normal person."
I'm already like a triple ghost.
Yeah. You don't understand. I'm like undead, okay? One more isn't going to make a difference at this point.
Yeah.
But no, he just stayed dead. And then his tongue was like sticking out and like hitting the floor, and like Hux walks in and just sees his corpse and is just like, oh, I guess the god that was leading us, the literal like god being in the flesh that was like commanding our entire order. He's
murdered
dead. He's
super
dead. He's cut in
easily.
half.
I
He's
can't
nothing
remember why wasn't J.J. Abrams directing.
I don't know.
They just like to split it up between people.
Because I remember being mad that he was
So-
going to direct Star Wars in the first place. Because
So
I was
was I.
like, he was going to get... First of all, I didn't think I was going to like what he did with Star Wars. And second of all, I really liked what he was doing with Star Trek, and I didn't want him to get distracted from Star Trek.
I don't know. I was mad that he didn't direct like the most recent Star Trek.
Right?
Did he
They-
not?
No.
What was the most recent one?
Into Darkness?
What's that one about?
Benedict Cumberbatch?
Well, yes, obviously.
No, there's another one.
There is?
There was another one
There's
after
a
that.
new one now, I thought.
I can't remember the name of it.
I literally can't remember a
can't
single
remember if I saw
Beyond
that
or
one.
something? I don't know.
I think it was Beyond. I think it's Star Trek Beyond.
Who did that one?
I don't know. Not J.J. Abrams. I didn't care enough.
What happens in that movie? I can't remember even a tiny bit.
Exactly. I just remember, like, I don't know. I think that
You, like, come out of the water at some point. And, like, I remember that scene. Or is that from another one?
I don't know.
I don't know.
They blend together in my
yeah.
mind. But I just remember seeing it in the theaters and
is
being
bothering
like very disappointed because just the whole vibe of it was different, and even the acting seemed worse or like not as good, and the plot was just kind of like meh.
I just feel like
I don't know if that
kinda-
was all the director, but just maybe
I
part
just
of it.
don't understand not sticking to one thing. Like, if you have built up this whole thing and there's a bunch of fans, I know it's more complicated than that, but, like, if you're trying to tell a story, then handing over the reins to somebody else who's going to change the story, or at least how it's delivered. I mean, I know I'm simplifying it.
No.
but...
I think you have a good point. I mean, if it was a spin-off movie, then sure, having different directors makes sense because they're completely different movies. But when you have a trilogy that's supposed to all be interconnected, to be watched in order,
I wanna
to be
know
watched
the
in one
plan.
sitting with all the same actors, the same characters, the same plot, the same ideas. Having different directors with completely different directing styles and like ideas of what they think is a good movie and like good emotional impacts and stuff, like that just messes with things.
While I agree with that, you also got to realize that George Lucas directed Episode 4, A New Hope, and then it was Irvin Kershner who directed Empire Strikes Back. Of course, Lucas was involved in it the whole time.
Yeah, if J.J. Abrams had been on set with Ryan Johnson,
to
I think the movie might have been better. Who,
I forget who did Return of the Jedi. now.
Episode 5 was the best Star Wars movie, I think, overall.
Everybody seems
Speaking
to think
about
that.
That is popular.
The Solo story was written by the Empire Strikes Back director.
Really?
When Disney
Gives me a
wanted
little bit of
him...
hope, actually.
Huh?
It gives me a little bit of hope for...
Exactly. Disney, they had him come back on, and he said, I will only come back on to help and consult if you make this movie.
See, I always really liked the very ending of Episode 3.
3?
Or, I mean 6. I mean 6.
Return of the
I
Jedi?
sometimes forget the prequels.
More like the ghost.
That's okay,
The
they're
ghost
the same
Jedi
thing.
show up and...
I just
partying.
really like, not that ending. Like, no, the confrontation with the Emperor and Darth Vader and Luke. That was always, like, my favorite part of the whole thing growing up
It was
was...
a very good scene.
Yeah.
The throne room scene is amazing.
And everyone was like, Return of the Jedi is the best one. I'm like, I can't even remember what happens because I'm, like, all about that throne room scene. And it's probably a similar reason that I liked the whole Obi-Wan versus Anakin thing, just because I like anything that makes me remember it on an emotional level for a long time, because it's kind of hard for
Yeah, the
me
big
to
final
get to that point. And there's so much to think about in that scene, like the different motivations, like the little subtleties in just a hand movement or whatever on Darth Vader's part, or...
Yeah, it was a great scene. The fight between Vader and Luke is actually a really good fight scene, like choreography wise. I mean, like compared to the other fights in the movies, it's like really good. And I think the emotional weight of the scene is really what brings it all together. Because episode 5, the fight between Luke and Vader, like, doesn't have that much emotional impact until the very end when, you know, Vader tells Luke, "I'm your father." Mm-hmm. But episode 6 is like, Luke knows Vader's his father. He believes that there's still some good in Vader. Vader believes that there's no good left in him and he's beyond redemption. The Emperor thinks that Vader is, like, old and useless, and that Luke has, like, a spark of, like, Vader in him that he can use and manipulate and turn Luke into his new apprentice, who will be more powerful than Vader because he's not, like, a cyborg, and he's younger, and he has all this, you know, time to grow and, like, become crazy strong. So the Emperor is trying to seduce him to the dark side, but he's also keeping Vader as a backup, just in case Luke says no, and, like, just, there's so many different motivations, like you said, like...
Kylo cough, Ray.
I started to see the similarities here. Wow. Oh, and you know, I think Ray found out who her parents were in episode 8.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
Just
It was less dramatic,
So
but...
derivative.
the mirror and the
You have
cave
no
are
parents.
basically the same.
You're
thing.
nothing. You're nobody.
So,
I honestly, since they did that, now I'm hoping that stays true. I'm hoping they don't be like, plot twist.
Kylo was lying to manipulate you. Yeah.
Your cousins.
And they tell them after they kiss, I'm like, this is really like episodes. Wow. This incest theme is very consistent.
I honestly thought they were cousins. Like, after I saw episode 7, like, I was like, definitely they're cousins. Like, definitely she's Luke's daughter. Everybody thought that. But then I read more theories, and then I became very convinced that
I would have been
Palpatine.
very angry if he was Luke's daughter.
I didn't
Because then
really
that makes
want
Luke
it.
a horrible, horrible person.
Yeah. I
Although
was
he was
afraid.
kind of a jerk anyway.
Well, if they
did
did that, they'd have to have given him some huge reason
It would've-
of dumping him on that planet.
I cannot
Luke
think
is
of-
hiding on this little planet by himself now.
I cannot think of a
And-
single good enough reason for Luke
I
to
don't know
abandon
why.
his child on a desert planet to fend
know.
for herself.
Yeah, I'm glad that's not
There are
what
so
happened.
many different things he could have done. Like, he could have just left her with, like, some family of people he was friends with from, like, the old days who, like, had some money and influence and, like, could take care of her. Instead of leaving her on a planet by herself at the age of, like, 6.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a critique of episode 8 that I keep seeing pop up online that is driving me up the wall. Because of all the things to criticize, I think it's the stupidest thing. People keep saying the whole reason the movie sucks is because Luke was going to kill Kylo, and that's so out of character. And I'm like, is it though? First of all, he thought about it for a sec, changed his mind, and Luke, I always kind of believed the Emperor was a little bit right, that there was, like, a little inclination. Think of how late Luke was trained to use the Force and everything. The fact that he didn't succumb to the dark side in the first place was, like, miraculous. And just, I know you want to say something so bad.
No, go ahead.
Just,
Keep going.
I feel like if you had a vision like that in the first place, and you're thinking this is for the greater good for like 1 second, and then change your mind like, oh shoot, and maybe you realize I'm about to make this a self-fulfilling prophecy if I do this, but then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy anyway because Kylo sees you. It just doesn't seem like anything to actually be saying, well, that's why this movie sucks, because Luke did something out of character. He didn't even do it. He just thought about it for a sec. Anyway, that's my rant.
He did more than just think about it, though. He actually went to Kylo's room and had the lightsaber in his hand. He didn't turn it on, but he had it in his hand. And Kylo wakes up and turns around and sees him with the lightsaber in his hand, and he's like, I'm about to get killed by my uncle. And he whips out his lightsaber and goes to hit Luke, and then Luke turns on his and blocks it.
Well, I agree the consequences were
But they
about
remember
the same.
Yeah, they remember it
But,
differently, though. That's interesting.
yeah.
Because remember, Kylo remembers it as Luke actually trying to kill him, and Kylo barely is, like, defending himself.
Well, it seems like a lot of the people online think they're agreeing with Kylo's recollection of
I
things.
do kind of think it is a little out of character, though. And I'll say why.
so does Mark Hamill.
Huh?
So does Mark Hamill.
Yeah, Mark Hamill disagrees with it big time,
Yeah.
which I think has, some weight that the actor who actually plays the character, how he feels about it. And I think Mark Hamill's a pretty smart guy. I think he generally understands the characters he plays pretty well.
I follow him on
his
Twitter. I've
his
seen-
voice of the Joker is like amazing, and like he gets so into that role. Like he's a very good character actor, I think, or like good at putting himself in the mindset. Anyway, Darth Vader was evil. He was like beyond evil. He had killed children. He had like ruined the galaxy. He had done horrible, horrible things. Kylo had done literally nothing up to this point aside from be like moody and maybe have some mood swing, like some anger problems, and like Luke had some scary visions, I guess. Luke believed there was good in Vader and risked his life multiple times, like literally put his life in Vader's hands, believing that there was good in him, and was so adamant about it. And like even when he was being tortured, like with the option of like killing Vader, who was probably fully evil anyway, to get out of that, like he still didn't do it because he believed there was just a shred of good in Vader. To me, that makes it really hard to imagine a version of Luke where it's the complete opposite, where there's a shred of evil, potentially, and he's so scared of it that he considers killing a child. It would be more believable to me that, like, Luke starts treating Kylo differently and, like, kind of acts weird around him and, like, doesn't trust him, but, like, him actually going into Kylo's room and pulling out his lightsaber, like, that just, I don't know, that's, like, too far to me. Like, I don't think Luke would ever do that.
Well, okay, counter-argument.
Okay.
Luke has never come across to me... Well, first of all, just disregarding the decades that have passed, people change. But Luke has never come across to me as the most rational guy. Like, he hated Darth Vader until he found out he was his dad. Then he was like, oh, there might be some good in him. But also, I have always seen him as pretty emotionally reactive. Like, if he had a strong vision like that, and not only that, he's got, like, this past trauma that he's had decades to ruminate about. Like,
right, because what if Kylo Ren is the next Darth Vader?
Yeah.
What if he does the exact same thing that Anakin did?
And then it's his fault for not doing anything about it. But then, you know, he changes his mind, which all seems very Luke to me. And I'm not saying it's necessarily the perfect bit of writing for his character. I'm just saying it's not enough to ruin the movie for me.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I disagree with how people overvalue it. I think it's not. I don't think it ruins the movie by any stretch of the imagination. It's a little odd to me. But
I'm gonna add on to what you said, Asia. Luke, while I don't think Luke ever technically should have gone into Kylo's room the way he did, I don't think he ever would have done that. But if you think back to when he's fighting Vader in the throne room in Return of the Jedi, there is a point where Vader's talking and he's saying, if you're not going to turn, perhaps Leia will, basically. Luke just lets loose at that point.
That's how he
screams, and he runs at him, and he's about to kill Vader. It was when he cut off Vader's hand, saw that, oh, he's a cyborg. He basically saw in himself, I'm basically the same as my father. That snapped him out of it. So I don't think it's outside his mindset to act irrationally. I think through, his 30, 40 years of training as a Jedi, I don't think he would actually go into the room and do that the way he did, but I think he could have at least thought about it.
He always seems like an unconventional Jedi to me, but you're right. He has had more training at that point.
yeah, you think he would have time to become less emotionally reactive and be more Jedi-like as the years went on. Also, I was going to say, if they had done something like he bans Kylo from the Academy because Kylo is getting too angry and too emotional and too. Maybe they have a scene where Kylo seriously injures another student in a duel because he gets too amped up, and Luke's like, "That's it, I'm not training you anymore. You're done. Get out of here." And I'm banning you from the Academy. And then Kylo kind of freaks out and just decides to destroy the Academy. That would have been a little bit more in line with Luke to me.
Yeah, but kind of cliche, and probably Luke would have seen that coming.
Huh?
It would have been a little cliche. I would think that Luke would see that becoming an issue, maybe, and that would be why he'd be wanting to just nip it in the bud. But maybe I'm just thinking of it from a cold analytical.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying. I don't disagree with the idea of this dude is very, very likely going to kill a lot of people if I let him continue down this path. And right now, it seems that the only solution is to just kill him. I can understand that mentality. I just don't think Luke would understand that mentality. I don't think Luke is a very analytical person. Like you said, he's very emotional. And I think the bond of, this being my sister's son, I think that should have a little bit more weight.
I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah.
I just don't trust people at all. People do weird, random things. And as much as I love Luke Skywalker's character, I don't always agree with every decision he makes or his own. I've been looking back at some of the older, the first movies that came out, and just looking at some of the scenes individually, Luke is such a baby about some things
Episode 4, he's a
emotionally.
huge baby.
He's such a baby.
Really whiny character.
And yeah, I don't know. So I don't think there's any hard set answer on this. I just feel it's not something that people, because I've seen some people be for sure, Luke would never do this. bad movie. Rewrite it. Non-canon.
I have a lot more problems with the movie beyond that.
Yeah.
That's a pretty minor thing to me.
I'm sure we could talk for hours about it. But it did make me think about how we were talking earlier about maybe, like, briefly discussing MBTI a little bit in relation, because...
Like the characters, what, like, roles they fit into, or, like, what personality types they might be.
Is he rational?
I do not think Luke is
No, he's an F.
He's absolutely an F.
Yeah, for sure.
I think him and Vader are both really strong Fs.
Oh, yeah.
Right after I said that.
Nothing. Cough. All right. So, what do you think Luke is? Let's try and type him, because I know I've seen things online, but they are all inconsistent.
I would say he's either an ESFP or an ENFP. That's my personal opinion.
I would go with ENFP out of those two anyway.
Really?
Yeah.
I was gonna say I could. Yeah.
I think he's definitely extroverted because he's like very outgoing and like very willing to try new things and like all these crazy experiences. He's definitely feeling. He's definitely perceiving because he is keeping his options open. Like with Vader, like if he was judging, he might have just been like, "You're evil. I'm going to kill you now, Vader." But like he kept the option open of Vader being good, like till the very end.
Yeah, and I was just talking about this last night with a couple of different people, including Donnie, about like the difference between perceiving as just not making any plans whatsoever and perceiving as keeping your options open.
Kind of having like a rudimentary plan for everything.
Right, exactly. Yeah. That's what I was trying to say. Because I'm a perceiver. My dad's also a perceiver. So he was talking about some like upcoming events. And he was saying, well, this could happen, this could happen, this could happen. And the person he was making plans with was saying, you're being so negative. And he was like, no, I want to be ready for any possible outcome or things that could change. And I was like, right? People think perceivers don't plan at all. But I'm just becoming like emotionally and mentally ready for any outcome and keeping my options open in case something better comes up. Like, that's basically it. I think sometimes in certain circumstances it almost takes more planning, just being flexible and willing to accept like different outcomes. Whereas the judging, I think they're excellent planners. They're great at like sticking to a schedule and probably get more things done more efficiently. It's just that sometimes that can translate into, I've made my decision, so I'm sticking with this decision, even if maybe it's not, now that there's new information, that's still the best decision.
Like I said yesterday, though, it really depends on what that judging is going with, because for me, I'm actually like that, where I'll look at all the different possibilities and be like, but it's more like, I'm doing that, but with a little extra step of, here's my decision of what I'll do in case that scenario happens. And then also because I'm not emotional about those possibilities or it's not as emotional about them, then it's like, it's handled very different versus like an idealist. Like any ENFJ, they like to plan things out and they can see those possibilities, but they're an idealist and they have like this perfect image in their mind of how things are going to go. And if it doesn't, they're like, my life is over. Versus me, I like to plan things out, but I also am very realistic and understand that almost nothing goes to plan. And so like, I'm still doing that where I'm like, this could go wrong, this could go wrong, and this could go wrong. But
all right, you take every time I talk about Jays as a personal attack. Well, I am talking about extreme.
I'm just trying to present the other side of things.
I understand. I'm just trying to. You're trying to present the other side of things against me trying to present the other side of things, because people already have this idea of judges and perceivers. So I'm speaking in extremes, of course, because you and I as individuals, we had very similar upbringings. Obviously, we're going to have gone towards each other a little bit in our behaviors.
More saying it because also, like, the reason I think that Luke is an ENFP is because I think he's an idealist. And I think that it can make a difference in, like, you can't judge someone's personality just on one letter, one part of it, and I think overall he's an idealist. And he's just always disappointed that
but
things are not going
like
as planned.
Fix people. He could be an ENFJ.
So do ENFPs a little bit. Or they just have really high hopes in people's personalities. Right. They're like, always want to find the good. So that's a very Luke thing.
We should talk about personality types that aren't in our direct family. We have too many feelings about them.
Let's see, what other character would be kind of interesting? I think Vader is ENFJ, as opposed to Luke being ENFP. That's my opinion. Because Vader made some very big decisions
and stuck to them very strictly.
That's true. I agree with that one.
He was like, I'm going to kill the Jedi. And then he killed them all, including the children.
Yeah, that also broke my heart. See, it's very corny when Padme says, "You broke my heart, Anakin." But at the time, when I saw the movie, I was like, I agree. Same.
I do not think that Vader's an ENFJ.
What do you think?
I don't know specifically. Obviously, if you look at the dumb charts online, a lot of people would say ENTJ or INTJ.
I don't think Vader is thinking at all. He's so emotionally reactive.
Is he an E, though?
Huh?
Is he an extrovert? He could be an INFJ like Hitler.
I could see that. INFJ more so than ENFJ. Actually, I'm going to say INFJ.
Tony.
That's my
I'm
analysis.
trying to think now, actually, because it's been a long time since I've watched the prequels, so he did kind of keep to himself. He didn't really like most other Jedi. He liked Obi-Wan Kenobi and Padme, and that was about it. He didn't really care to have I don't know, he didn't have friends in the movies, really.
INFJs typically have the intense emotional, internal emotional struggle.
He seemed really insightful, as a child, too. Insightful of other people's feelings. Well, we have to, balance out for the Force, I guess. You're right.
That was what Anakin was doing. He was the chosen one. Balance the Force. It comes back full circle.
So before we go, why don't you guys give me, one last plug for whatever projects you've got going on. How about you, Geordi? Anything going on you'd like to plug?
Yeah, I'm working on a podcast. A friend of mine, Stephen Hausch, we're recording. It's called Game Sense, and we talk about game mechanics and how they relate to board games and video games. So we'll pick a topic, a certain specific game mechanic, and then we'll discuss how it affects board games, how it affects video games, how it can make a video game fun, and how it can make a video game bad, and then the same thing for board games. And he knows board games super well. He literally owns hundreds. I know video games really well, and I've played a lot, so we have both areas of expertise. We've only recorded one episode so far. We're going to record another 2, hopefully within the next couple days, and then we are going to upload them, and I think we're probably going to put them on SoundCloud. So
yeah, that's what we did at first, too. So
I'll have a link to it in my bio on Instagram if anyone's interested.
Yeah, send it to me. I'll put it up on the Patreon. So if you guys want to see it, I won't make it. You don't have to pay. It'll just be there on the Patreon account. So just check our...
Well, then you don't have to... I won't charge you for my appearance on the show then.
Oh, thank goodness. Phew. I'm broke. Patreon.com/mostlyrational. Go there if you guys want to see a link to that podcast. You want to plug anything one last time, Brandon?
Sure. On Instagram, Arctroop Wong, I do action figure photography, mostly Star Wars. So I've had Oblivion, Comics and Coffee in downtown Sac feature my stuff over there. I'm a little slowed down, but I'm thinking I'm going to pick it up again this summer, so...
I've seen it. It's pretty
fun.
Cool, guys.
Yeah, it is.
Thank you.
You want to spell your username real quick?
ARCTROOPWONG.
All right. So... that just about wraps it up for us. So thank you for podding with us, Brandon and Geordi.
Thank you.
So you listeners, if you'd like your questions answered on an upcoming episode, please email us at mostlyrationalpod@gmail.com. And if you'd like to support the Mostly Rational podcast, you can leave a review and rating on iTunes. That really helps us out, gets us out there a little more. If you'd like to support us and get some sweet perks, visit patreon.com/mostlyrational and choose your favorite reward tier. You can follow us on Twitter at mostlyrational and on Instagram at mostlyrationalpodcast. I know it's a little confusing. We've got so many different usernames, but we just had to take what was available. Yep. It's easiest on Twitter because it's just Mostly Rational. So either way, you'll get updates about when we upload new episodes, when they're coming out, when a new blooper episode goes up on the Patreon. So would recommend. Well, thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next time. May the 4th be with you.
Jeez.
I almost stopped to have all